Hey, it's Jason ODB, the Lincoln Addict, hitting you with another video to kind of review an eBay listing. Hopefully you enjoyed the first review that I did. I did that one uncut, which I'll do as well with this one, and basically just kind of got the idea because I still continue to get or receive a lot of questions from people who are looking to buy one of these 60s Lincolns. Now, again, I will reiterate, if you look back at the first video, I'll put a link in the description. Please note, I'm not trying to harp on a potential seller. I am just trying to, my goal really is just to make sure that people kind of know what to look for, okay? So that one you could say was me being possibly a little bit harsh, but at the end of the day, if it was your money, you would want someone like myself or John Cashman or Chris Dunn or Blair Farmer to look at a car and give you that good feedback, because who wants to overpay for anything? Whether it's property, it's a house, it's a Lincoln Continental, everybody wants to get, the best bang for their buck. And these cars obviously have become super popular. You can see from this listing here, basically it's at a $46,000 current bid with 8 bids, reserve not met. So that tells me, obviously, that the car is going to take more money to buy this one. And when I look at the buy it now price, typically you're either going to have someone that maybe is not as experienced with eBay, and they may put the buy it now price way above where the bidding starts. So like if they started at $1 and they have a buy it now of $65,000, the reserve, your guess is as good as mine, but I've seen people put the reserve for $20,000 less, which I don't recommend that, only because, this price can scare some people, right? But again, there's some kind of maybe some science to that, or whatnot on how to go about that. That's a whole different video. But this person has a 152 rating, and again, we know that the price is more than likely going to be closer. My guess is that he has the reserve set for 55 or 60,000 based upon where these two numbers are right now. 6 watched in the past 24 hours. I have not added this to my watch list, but I want to give a tip of the cap to this guy. This listing is fantastic, okay? And we're going to go through this. Basically, you have your standard information here. Can't really do any kind of VIN searches on this. I don't think I mentioned this in the beginning, or with the last video, rather. Can't really do a VIN search because this stuff is so old. And for those that don't know, I don't have all the details, but there was a large fire. I don't know if that was back maybe in the 70s or late 60s, and a lot of the Lincoln records were destroyed. So you'll hear, or if you're watching, Dennis Collins or Richard Rawlings or these different TV shows or YouTube channels, you'll often hear them say, I think it's called the Marty report. I forget, and I apologize on what it's called, but you can't do one of those for these Lincolns because the records do not exist. So we know it's a 462. For those that don't know, the 462 was used from 66 to mid 68 when they got rid of all of the 462s, okay? These engines run fantastic, and anybody that will tell you that has one, for the most part, you just do the normal maintenance and you're good. I'm not going to read this description, but I will stop here for a moment, okay? This, just so you know, this ends in 4 days, so I'm going to post this fairly quick, so you guys are welcome to go look at it, okay, in terms of eBay. The description is solid, okay? It's not overly done, but it has good detail, and that's what I would recommend to you, whether you're an individual looking to potentially sell a car down the road, or, hell, someone may have came to this channel because of, maybe my last review, and they may have said, man, this guy's an a-hole. That's not what I'm trying to do. I really want to give good feedback, because for me, I would rather see a good description, and these cars sell for what they should based upon the car that is listed. Basically kind of goes on to say that it was disassembled and it was refinished in the 90s. The owner died during the resto, and the car sat unassembled for over 20 years. It was purchased and reassembled by Coachworks Company in San Diego. Kind of goes on to say the steering's been redone. It's got a new gas tank. Those are good things for us to know, because we can see that if as seller provides the photos from underneath the car. He's very clear that the undercarriage is original, so that's key. And he kind of talks about, they don't have to worry about the salted roads in Arizona. Fantastic. Totally get that. The trunk is a 10 of a 10. I love how he says the rating here, the paint, he gives it a 7.5 out of 10 because it's sat for many years. There are some bubbles and things like that. So he's being very forthcoming versus saying, oh, the paint is beautiful. Oh, everything is immaculate. That type of thing. You can see the honesty in this. The car looks like it's been completely restored from 5 foot. So you often hear the term, it's a 5-footer, meaning exactly what this gentleman's kind of saying. From 5 foot away, it looks fantastic. I would not be afraid of someone saying that because, they're being truthful. And, even as nice as the cars I have are, anybody can get up on a car and start picking it apart. It's just the way it goes. Talks about the interior is two-tone leather and it's good condition. We'll talk more about that. The car is fully loaded with the factory options, including the tilt steering wheel. So these cars were highly optioned cars, and he is aware enough to know that it has tilt column, and in 66, 67, maybe even on up. But I know in those 2 years, GM made the steering column, and the tilt column's a little bit different, a little bit more normal tilt column, if you will, for than 64, 65. That's what I'm trying to say. He goes on to say the AC is not working, but it's there. This is typical. He kind of says, he's never found the AC to work good enough to really put the money into fixing it. If you've ridden in a Lincoln that has a cold AC, you will probably disagree with this. I know Blair Farmer and Teresa down here, they have done some great kind of restos on air condition. I'm going to do it on my 2 cars, getting the new condenser, new hoses, potentially a new compressor and stuff, and the AC will blow ice cold. So the good thing is with this stuff, this is normal on a lot of older cars. It's not working, but he's being truthful. When I see people say, oh, the AC just needs to be charged, listen, if it was that easy, they would have had it charged and they would be enjoying it, especially in Arizona. Now, granted, with the top down, these cars, it's pretty warm. If you live in Florida and stuff, I was driving mine yesterday, it gets pretty hot. But just know with the AC kind of kicked on, it does help. He provides his phone number and he says he's got something else coming. So when I start to look at these photos, you see like a real nice car. And if we jump back up here, I want to note that it's a 67. One of the key things that you'll know the difference between 66 and 67 is if it's all factory, the 66 will have the Lincoln Star right here. That's the first quick tell or giveaway, so to speak. I can't just click through these, so I'm going to have to keep going back and forth. What I'm looking at here is to kind of see the trim is here. These are what they call the peak moldings. A lot of times I'll start to look around here and see if there's any damage. You can see it's maybe not perfect, but by all means, this doesn't look bad at all, in my opinion. Typically in here, if you're going to have someone look at a type of car like this, you'll want to look to see if there's any rot. Again, I don't think there is on this car. I'm just kind of pointing out those are places where water could kind of sit up underneath where this trim is at. So if somebody was really getting in here with a little flashlight and things, they would just want to kind of scope that out. The bars, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on 67. I want to say it's 11 on 66, but don't quote me on that. But I do know it's a different count. That's another way to tell the difference, right? Bumper looks good overall. I would say this is a really nice quality. This is fantastic, probably way nicer than the 67 that I owned. So very nice stuff. Again, kind of seeing in here, everything looks good. Sometimes with these cars being, big boats or land yachts, what they're often referred to as, you will, potentially see, I had a 67 with some damage. It's kind of hard to tell here. It's probably a shadow. I don't know if that's a little dent or just the way the paint is again. But, my suggestion, have someone look at one of these cars, but we can kind of do a good deep dive here, which we're doing. So far, everything I'm seeing on this, man, I would love to own this car, okay? It looks super clean. You see this piece right here on 66, 67. I know for sure they have this they have this weather strip piece. It's kind of torn a little bit here. This just kind of hides that gap, I think is the only functionality. They also have some pieces that are in here. And I point that out because let's say you buy a car like this that's really nice and the weather stripping's all shot. You're going to spend upwards, my guess is about $3,000, maybe $3,500 going to Steel Rubber, who's one of our key partners, STEELE rubber.com. Steel Rubber, they sell almost every single piece for these cars, and they're the best in the business. So I always caution people that is a huge cost on these cars, depending on if everything is like really bad, so to speak. Again, I'm seeing everything. The paint looks fantastic on this. I'm not seeing any bubbling up here, which I'll talk more about in other videos with these deck lids. If you have one, you know that these are prone to get some rust in here, and it's normal. But again, we'll talk more about that in another video. I see, obviously, all the trim is on here. It has the driver's side mirror, which I do want to point out to everyone is it's normal not to have the passenger mirror. The passenger mirror on these year cars is super rare to own one, and they did not come with a passenger mirror, just so everyone knows. Again, good stuff. I wanted to do this video because I want to show that, this is a very good listing. So far, we're seeing great photos. The interior. So to me, when I first look at it, it does look like it's been redone. You do see some of the normal wear down here, which I like to see. I'm fairly confident this is not stock. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and that is not a bad thing. I think it's totally fine to have their interior redone. In fact, in my 65 red car, it's been redone, and although it doesn't have that original feel and exact look, it's fine. I mean, the stuff is going to wear out. These cars are 60 years old, right? I do believe this is the power headrest. So I have a set of these cars, and I'm about 99% sure based upon you could see the difference. And that was a feature for the power headrest in these cars, and it just gave, when the seat was put back, like let's say your lady was laying there or whatever, it just was an extra feature. And if you look in some of the original brochures, you'll see a lady with the seat kind of back a little bit, relaxing with the headrest extended. Okay, this is key, man. I love that he did this. He talks about John Cashman, that this is one of the last cars that he worked on in 2020, which more on that before he retired. You basically have, this is the standard John Cashman invoice. So, John signs it. He has the date, right? So that coincides back in 2020. He talks about all of the stuff that he fixes, and John did a fantastic job of always writing this stuff up. And, you could see here, it looks like $5,132 he spent. So again, that's a cool thing. That's the same as if you had a custom home builder build your house, you would want people to know that. If you had someone do a certain, maybe a swimming pool feature in your house and you were selling it, you would mention that. So John is the name synonymous with these convertibles. What I'm looking at here is, some of the stickers and things like that. Often with the respray, if it wasn't a full restoration, you're going to see, maybe these stickers gone and things, but, you see the plate here for the VIN information. Everything's kind of checking out. I didn't mention this in the other video, but I do recommend, and I do like to see photos, but I would recommend always get photos underneath these doors, okay? If you have someone, or if you're looking at the car, get underneath there. Now, it's not the end of the world if there is some rust. Obviously, water would kind of get in here over the years, and water would kind of sit. My 64 blue car, it's not the nicest at the bottom of the doors. All that stuff can be fixed, but depending on what the price of the car is, you want to know exactly what you're getting. It's got the wide white wall tires. I like it. Some don't. That's not a big deal. You can easily swap out the tires. And oh, by the way, we know that tires only last so long. So if these tires have been on here a long time, try to see if you can find a date code. If, let's say, for instance, you have a budget to buy a car and you get the car and you realize like, hey, I want to do the seals and, oh, wow, now the tires are bad, the tires, add in an expense. And last I checked, I mean, you're probably going to look at $1,000 to $1,500 for tires. But those tires to me look fantastic, at least from the appearance. Again, a lot of good photos. This is fantastic. Paint looks really good. I often will look in here and, kind of see what the gap is. I have seen cars that when you open the convertibles, the doors are almost touching when you first open both doors together. Always look at that. They should not touch at any point when they're being opened or closed. And a lot of times, if a car is rusted out or pretty bad, and I've seen them, when you open both of these doors at the same time, they will kind of touch for sure. Okay, top is up. Thank you. So again, I was a little bit maybe harsh on the last video. Dude, if you have a convertible, especially one of these, we already got to tell that John Cashman worked on it. Fantastic, right? You'll see more evidence of that in a moment. But bottom line is the top needs to work, right? So if there's a full restoration, or even if it hasn't been, it's not an unfair question to ask. When I bought the Blue 64 back in 2017, the top did not work, and the gentleman said, hey, it hasn't been working. I don't know why. The good thing is it really hadn't been touched, and, it was an easy fix, and it was some maintenance and things like that. Again, I mentioned this in the other video. This is kind of the dog leg area that they call it. This is typical to see these little bit of bubbling, and that's why the gentleman rated this paint, not a 10. It was, I think, a 7.5. This is always suspect, like if it was a rusted out car, is there a lot of Bondo? This doesn't look bad to me, although this little piece right here does not look perfect. Some would argue that it wasn't perfect from the dealership, but I would be a little suspect on any of these cars, including this one, just of, hey, was this Bondoed together or patched up with Bondo, right? And I don't think that it was, in my opinion. You can see there, again, the top on there. This top color, I can't rattle off all of the top colors for each year. Primarily, you're going to see, white, black. My 64 has a blue, which is available in 64 and up if it had blue interior. This top, I can tell, based upon my understanding, that this is a new top. So that's great. That's great news. Anytime there's a new top, you're looking at $1,000 to $2,000 for a top, plus labor to install it, plus the wiring that goes inside the top. So I would easily value at the material, the labor, some of the miscellaneous parts, $3,000 to $5,000, depending on where you live in the country. You might even find higher prices for people to even want to install one of these. And the other thing is, folks have told me, including Teresa from Lincoln Land, that, oftentimes if it's a person that doesn't know what they're doing, they could end up putting a staple through the wiring. So what we can see here, the good news is it looks like it has a new top. We know the top works. Same result on the other side. What I like to see here is this trim looks fantastic. Looks like it's probably never been off. Maybe if it was resprayed. But for the most part, everything is there and it looks real nice and tight. Here, you're going to see this typical, like I had mentioned on the deck lid itself. This is what they call the package tray or the flapper. That's what closes, or this area, if you will, is what we kind of refer to as the flapper. And that's what kind of goes up underneath when the top's up or down or whatnot. It's not atypical to see a little bit of rust like this. What I would do is, if I was looking at it, is put the top back in the trunk, and then as the deck lid is up, you can look all underneath this panel to kind of get a good view of it. Again, don't be scared of this. The worst part of fixing one of these is probably taking it off, and any good reputable body shop probably can do that and take that off and repair those little pieces or issues. Here again, you see the same thing on this side, not atypical. I don't know if I'm using that word right. Not surprising. This is kind of normal. You can see here, it looks a little bit maybe not the way it's supposed to. Majority of the time, I wouldn't be worried about little things like this. The top is really, if you have one of these cars or buy one, the top is there if it rains. If you're out driving this car around, with little exception, you're going to be enjoying it with the top down. Everything looks good here. These often will crack right here and or right here. I had a 67 and they just do that. This dash pad looks really good. This little bit around here where the ashtray pulls out, this is kind of typical on how the material is. It's not perfectly straight. That's perfectly fine. That's stuff that more than likely, is no big deal. This is all standard here. The kick panels. You have a couple things. There's a couple of features here, and I forget if this is the speed control. But yeah, everything looks really nice in here. You can see the 66, 67 buckles. They're there. I think that they were, by that time, they weren't an add-on feature. Closer look at the dash, and you can see here, this is typical. So don't worry about this. You could either get this redone down the road. I wouldn't even really worry about it unless you were really looking to have, a high performing car in like an LCOC event. That's not bad at all. Hell, you're not going to be looking at the dash. You're going to be looking out over the road as you cruise your car. So no big deal. You can see it also hasn't been highly detailed. So like all of this stuff, this is stuff you get on the weekend and kind of clean up if you want. But to me, I'd rather a car, not be presented, like with lipstick on it. This is kind of a car you could tell that's been driven. Okay, so far here, everything looks good. You see a little bit of overspray on the latch. They may have taped some of this stuff up, that type of thing. You can see this, the spray on but that just coincides with the fact that it was resprayed. And based upon this, where the VIN tag's at, I would say it was probably all taped up, standard stuff for painters. Underneath here, it looks really good, and this is the tell, John Cashman's famous signature. The date aligns July 20, which is 2020. You can see this is beautiful. All this stuff in here. And although, I'm not putting hands and eyes on this car, I could say from my experience, this is super nice. What John would do, I've seen him do a couple of these assessments in person. What he would do is he would take his fist and you can just lightly tap right here. And you can listen to see if you hear the rust showers kind of fall down, so to speak. And it's a great way. It's not going to damage the car at all, but it's a great way to kind of find out, is there a lot of rust inside these? Now, I will tell you, one of the key things is that it's not it is typical for a bit of kind of rust that'll be inside that. You'll hear a little bit of the rust stuff falling, just the way these cars are, but it's nothing crazy. So 66, 67, or it shouldn't be anything crazy, I should say. So 66, 67, these had the glass rear windows, which is a very, very cool feature. And they also had this bar right here that was fixed, if you will, from an engineering standpoint. John Cashman used to install this bar on the earlier year Lincolns, including 64, 65. But again, this is a normal thing that you will see on these year cars. Top down, great photo here. You see, again, it's not perfect. That's okay. These are standard things. Now, this car is, the prices are going up on these. And typically the 66, 67s, typically from my dealings, haven't sold for as much money consistently as a 61 through 65. And that's just because most people want an earlier year Lincolns. I'm a huge fan of these years, and I think they're fantastic cars. Even people that give these years a hard time, once they own one, I know a guy, believe me, once he got one, he realized how nice the cars are, and then now he raves about them. Okay, and he was one of the guys that would often kind of hate on the 66, 67s, and 68s. So again, another photo here just kind of showing. So far, everything looks fantastic. If you're looking for kind of like a driver car, I mean, this car would easily probably go state to state or a weekend cruiser. This is certainly a super awesome car. Okay, so this video is getting long, so let me speed this up. Great, you got underneath photos. This photo shows the gas tank, so that's key. You do see up in here, I would not be afraid of this kind of discoloration with the metal, okay? If this car was from Michigan or somewhere up in the Northeast and it was seen a lot of rust, you'll start to see some pretty bad undercarriages, okay? I would not be afraid of this one. If I was looking at it, I would take a screwdriver and just kind of tap around. A lot of this metal is pretty thick in here, okay? And a lot of this is from the heat of the mufflers and resonators and stuff like that. So from what I'm seeing so far, this is kind of a normal thing. It's not a full-blown show car, which most of us don't want. And it looks pretty good. The engine looks great. The first thing I noticed right here is it has a 2-port, okay? Carter doesn't make 3-port fuel pumps anymore. So the replacement that they came out with in, I don't know, 70s or 80s is a 2-port. That does not leave the 3rd port where the fuel can make its way back to the fuel tank that's not burned, okay? Don't want to get into a full, description of that, but what I want you to know is that you're going to want, if you own this car, you're going to want to change this to a 3-port. The usual suspects, you can get one for maybe $300 to $400. This one literally just goes in the trash. It can and will cause vapor lock, just the way these engines are, and you'll end up having, you'll incur maybe 3 to 4, maybe a little bit, more if you don't have a core, which this would not be a core, but you'd want to have that swapped out. This blue is typical for these years, so no worries there. Again, you have these extra braces that are often lost or misplaced during restoration. You see the AC here. Fan shrouds in these years are not metal. They do tend to crack, but this one, from what I can see, looks fine. Underneath the front, all normal stuff. It actually looks pretty clean. But he mentions in there that they didn't go and respray. I would rather see a car like this that kind of shows its age a little bit versus if somebody went in here and sprayed undercoating under all this and it's like, oh wow, it's all brand new. That's not what I want to see. If I'm going to buy a car, I want to know, hey, what's the real deal? And this kind of shows us that the car is not perfect, but it's damn solid from what I could tell. You got a little bit of literature, and you have the white wall tires. Okay, you can see this little piece here. That's where the fuel lines come up. That's typical for it to kind of be bent there a little bit. You see a little bit of maybe that was paint done at some point in here, but again, it doesn't look like anything recent and nothing to worry about. I'm looking in here as well, and you kind of see where all the trim kind of lines up and where it's at. So I would give this listing a pretty good rating. I don't know. I haven't thought of a rating system, but I would say like 9 to 9.5 for this listing, solely based upon a very solid description, not overly done, great photos. So exterior, interior, and engine, of course, and then the undercarriage. So I'm thoroughly impressed with this one. I don't want to say whether I think it's worth this much money or not. I do think these cars continue to go up. And if you look at the numbers, there were only so many convertibles made each year, upwards of 3,000 to maybe 3,500. So if you want a car, start looking at these more often. And there you go. Actually, if I would have clicked on the photos up there, I could have went through them quicker. It only lets you get to a certain point, which this looks like a Jim Wallace kit maybe. This is a really, really, really nice presentation. The trunk looks fantastic, okay? And then, of course, once they list those photos up there, then you have to go down here because it will only kind of let them put so many up there. So this is Phoenix, Arizona. So that's good to know, and that's kind of it. So appreciate you guys watching. ODB, the Lincoln Addict. Make sure you check out Lincoln Addict Podcast however you find podcasts. Take care. We're out of here. Peace.